I was only there for 30 minutes.
You had a Stairmaster today too?
Yeah. I did that in my break.
I did 40 minutes.
Ugh.
It's getting me. I like it. I mean, it's working.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, it's I wish we would have had one earlier.
Yeah, this Stairmaster is my favorite thing in the world.
So good. So today we'll talk about those topics. I'm going to introduce how I met you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then,
that's such a fun story.
Yeah. And then we'll go from there.
Okay, cool.
Sound good?
Yeah.
Ready?
I'm just gonna laugh the whole time.
Yeah, it's fine.
That's what I do in my podcast. I just giggle. Yeah, I'm down.
Cool.
Okay.
All right. Good? All right, guys. Welcome to Conquer All Things Podcast. Josh, joined by Haley today.
Hello.
Hello, Haley.
Hello.
Thank you for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
So we're going to go over how we met first, just because I like to let people know how I met my friends, and then we'll jump into these cool topics I'm really excited to talk about with you. So I met you 5 years ago, and you were my practical exam to become a personal trainer at Crunch.
Yeah.
Which was fun. I did not really talk to you before that practical, but I'd seen you around the gym and I watched you work out, and I always respect people that train. So I'm like, all right, well, we're going to be friends at some point because she knows what she's doing. She's a badass. And when Antonio was like, you're going to train Haley, it's like, great. Went through it. I felt pretty good until the end when he was like, hey, you got to stretch her out. And I was like, okay. I didn't know how to do that. I'd never been trained to stretch someone out before.
Yeah.
You know, in sports that I played, it was just me stretching myself out before things. And I remember telling him, like, you know, where are you tight? And I think you'd said, oh, lower back a little bit. And, like, he's watching us. And I'm like, okay, you know, just, like, grab your own leg and, like, pull it over and just, like, stretch it. And you did it, too, which was, you grab your leg, you're like, okay. And I could tell you're like, this is not what you're supposed to be doing right now. And then Antonio was like, hey, man, get in there. And I was like, get in there? Like, that's the wrong terminology. He was like laying on the ground. We don't know each other. I'd not been trained to do that either.
Yeah.
And he's like, just grab her leg, put it on your shoulder. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, stretch her out. I was like, okay, I don't know. I was like, all right, we're just going to skip the rest of this part. And it was so, I think, a fun, nice icebreaker for our relationship.
It's hysterical.
But yeah, that's how we met at Crunch.
The very first
we've
day.
Been friends since then. You had already been a trainer for a while at that point. When I left Crunch and opened the studio down the street, you eventually came over, which I was very excited about. You're someone I've always respected. You know, we
Feelings
get along
mutual.
Really well. We have a lot of similar background, which I think
we
is
do.
great. So let's jump into one of those similarities.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about two things. First, let's talk about eating disorders. I'm going to let you share your experience first.
Okay.
And then I'll talk a little bit about mine. We'll kind of go from there.
Yeah.
Cool?
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds good. Well, while we're recording this, I told you this earlier, it is National Eating Disorder Week.
It is. Yes.
This week. So, super important topic to talk about, especially in the fitness community. There's so many misconceptions. With social media, there is so much information, and a lot of it is wrong, unfortunately. And a lot of it is scary to see right now. We're living in a time where young girls, young boys are looking at this and thinking this is what they have to look like. This is the model to look like. And I cannot imagine, like, thank God I did not grow up with social media, dude. Like, oh my God. Yeah. If there's one thing I'm grateful for, it's that.
Agreed.
Because I didn't know my eating disorder started so young. But I have, like, this vivid memory of when I was a kid. And I don't hold on to it anymore. It's released, but it's still a memory. And I'm standing with these girls, and we're measuring each other's waists. And whoever has the biggest waist is the fattest. You lose, right?
Okay.
That was me. I was the girl who lost. And oh my God, it was the most embarrassing, most shameful moment of my poor little existence at that time. This was younger than middle school.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. I cannot remember how old I was. It's just like there. Yeah.
Core memory.
Oh, 100%. And from that moment on, I just always thought I was bigger. That was just what was ingrained in my brain. And I remember, I think I started my first diet when I was 12. I did Weight Watchers because, you know, it's what was happening in my...
It was a big thing.
It was a big thing. And I know my mom was doing it. And I had my own, like, piece of paper. It was the old school one where you like had a wheel and like the points.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And they just let you do it because they didn't know any better. No one knew any better that was going to fuck you up. Excuse my French.
No, you're good.
In the long run, I was like, ooh. So I remember doing it, and I remember being so over in points all the time and just feeling awful.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get my food under control. And I tried every diet I could think of at that point. So from like age 12 to, well, a couple years ago, even still now, I still track my food. I'm still thinking about food constantly. But I tried everything. I remember there was one diet, it was like a cabbage soup diet. Oh. And all you ate was cabbage soup. And I remember I got so sick I almost passed out.
There's like nothing.
It's literal water.
Yeah.
It's water. Yeah. And I remember having to go find like a tub of ice cream in the school to go eat to try and get my blood sugar back to normal because I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to faint.
Right.
And it just went back and forth. Food was always the biggest part of my life. It's all I thought about. Mm-hmm. It was an obsession. And they never diagnosed me as having an eating disorder because I was never bulimic or anorexic.
Right.
I never could fall into that classification.
Yeah.
So a couple years ago when I finally sought treatment, the first question the doctor asked me was, okay, are you anorexic or bulimic? And I was like, I'm neither. Yeah. But I'm obsessed with food. Mm-hmm. It is all I think about. I can tell you how many calories are in something just by looking at it. Yeah. I think about it. Before I go out to eat, I plan my whole day around it. It is an obsession.
Right.
And finally they were like, okay, well, I mean, you can't classify it, so we don't really technically work with people like that. And I was like, but it's a problem. Yeah. I'm not living my life. Mm-hmm. And finally they did. They got me some help. By help, I mean a dietitian.
Right.
Who just basically,
Yeah, hit or miss.
Yeah. And they were like, once a week we'd meet and be like, so how did you eat this week? And I was like, fine. But I did seek my own outside treatment.
Yeah.
And I was a part of this group, and it was wonderful. They did such a great job, talking about being open with how you eat, integrating new foods, doing all of that. And even though it's still a struggle, I still have that constant voice in my head. It has gotten a little better.
Right.
Because now, I'm grateful I get to come here and talk about it with other people without being silenced.
Yeah.
It's not taboo anymore in my world. And I have tools, which
I think the tools is such a crucial thing because I don't know that something like that ever really goes away. Mm-mm. It's sort of just how do you cope with it with the tools that you've found.
Exactly.
Can you share, do you have one or two tools that you've that you go to?
Yeah, so I find my eating disorder gets the worst when I can't control a situation.
Okay.
So for me, if there's things in my life that are out of control, I turn to food immediately.
Got it.
So that's how I handle my stress. Mm-hmm. Now, when I find myself in that position, I start going, okay, so I know that I can't control this. What can I control? So I'll sit and I'll meditate because I can control that. Yeah. I can breathe. I can take a minute. I can work out. I remember that food is nourishment and not a punishment.
Yes.
It's all these different mantras I've started incorporating into my life and remembering that I am not food. Food is not me. It doesn't define who I am. It's a coping mechanism for something else. Right. For me, it's control or lack thereof. Mm-hmm. And just coming to terms with that is huge.
Yeah, totally.
And therapy. Oh my God, therapy. Therapy is my number one tool.
Yeah,
my therapist is amazing. She helps me so much with this. But that's been my biggest thing.
That's great. Yeah. My eating disorder is a little different. I'm just kind of realizing recently in therapy that I have one. Mine is I don't think about food. And we sort of traced it back to when I was a kid. And I think you're wired so much in that before 5 time period. Mm-hmm. My mom was an alcoholic. It was me and her alone. unless she was dating somebody. But, my dad and her had separated. And so what I realized was I wasn't fed much. Like, if she was hungover and slept until 5, I was 4. I wake up at 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
And so I had to figure out food for all of those hours before she got up.
Oh my God.
And so for me, it was like, I have a vivid memory, and it's pulling out the drawers in the kitchen, like steps, and climbing them to get to the countertop. Because in the counter was where like there was some peanut butter or some Triscuits or something, or like ramen. I would like rip open ramen and just eat like raw ramen packets. Just like whatever I could do until my mom woke up. And it wasn't every single day. She was a very functioning alcoholic. But on those days, because I could go so long without eating, I just do. I don't think about it most of the day. And I love food too. Yeah. Like, I love to eat. In my brain, there's no voice that says, hey, you should probably eat lunch. Until it's a physical response of a migraine or dizziness or blood sugar dropping, I can go a whole day without thinking or touching food. Which is a weird thing for a lot of people because they think about food so much. But I think there's so many different versions of eating disorders, right?
100%.
And then I know, because I told this to somebody like 3 weeks ago, and it was a trainer, and he looked at me and he goes, guys don't really have eating disorders. And I was like, oh, cool. That's weird to say.
That's not true at all.
Right. And so, but it's interesting when you think about it. It's like, yeah, I guess guys don't really talk about it as much as they should.
Yes.
And I got to give it up. I think recently, in the last like year or so, women mostly, being strong enough and open enough to come out and talk about these things are, I think it's so inspiring to see.
Yeah.
It's vulnerable, really vulnerable. And, even asking you to do this today, like, I was like kind of hesitant, but we talk about this stuff and I'm like, man, like, Haley's really open.
Yeah.
She's the perfect person to talk about this with. And I think people like you who are talking about it are inspiring to me and encouraging me to want to talk about it more. And I hope other men start to talk about those things too. And maybe this week, I'm going to actually, now that you told me earlier, it's National Week.
Yep.
I'm going to see if there's any men that are talking about it. I'm kind of curious to find people.
You'll find them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that we can spread some awareness of this stuff, because again, like, you don't want to be told like, hey, men don't really have that, or as a woman too, right? Like, oh, you don't have an eating disorder, you're fine. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Being told you're fine is never fun.
No.
Like, and being put on diets and the fad diets. I don't remember the cabbage one. I remember the celery one though.
I did that one too.
The celery one. Yeah,
I did the celery one. I remember that was
huge. Just celery juice.
Yep.
Yeah, so something that I do for coping with mine is, just because I don't think about food enough, is I have alarms set in my phone, and I still have a hard time even with alarms, because people here will come and hand me, like, Ryan will be like, here's your food, it's been in the microwave for an hour and a half. Like, I don't think about it, so my alarms are sort of set to remind me, hey, every 3 hours, like, you gotta eat something. Or every 4 hours you gotta eat something. And trying also to think about, I've been writing about it, journaling about it, and writing about it. That's been really helpful too. Recommended in therapy. Hey, you like writing? It's a good tool for you. Write about these things. Also, write about like positive experiences with food that you've had too. Like, think of those things, and don't just think of the negative ones and associate it to that I wasn't fed. Think of the times where someone bought you dinner and it was like positive experience. You know? And which has been nice to also just recall those memories. But yeah, we're good. Okay, let's segue into the next topic anyways. Perfect segue.
Yeah.
Eating disorders. Let's talk about body dysmorphia. I think that's a big one for almost anyone in the fitness space, for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's a weird thing when you get in shape and you work towards a goal and you get closer to that goal, you start to nitpick more.
Oh my God, 100%. Yeah.
Which is a weird thing, but is it something that you kind of deal with, or your clients?
When I first got into fitness, I was never like your fit girl. Like, that was definitely not what people would describe me as.
Yeah.
I was not out of shape, but I wasn't in shape.
Got it.
So I was a dancer my whole life, very much did not want to do anything else. And I was bigger than I am now. So I definitely had I had a very large chest from a very young age. That is not conducive to a dancer's body.
Right.
So I was already self-conscious about that because immediately I was like being told, you'll never be a dancer, you'll never do this, you'll never do that. And I was actually approved for breast reduction when I was 16. But my mom said, you're not doing it because I guarantee you in like 5 years, you're going to find something they're going to be gone. And she wouldn't let me get it done. And I remember being so pissed off. I was like, how dare you not let me do this? Sure enough, I move out to California. I hate it out here. Immediately, I'm just like, why am I here? I hate this place. I hate the people. I missed my family. I lost some weight in college. I gained it all back. I was just so miserable. And I guess one day I just started angry running. I had never ran a day. I used to cry when they would make us run a mile in gym class. And now anybody who knows me is like,
yeah, dude.
I'm sorry, what? I literally just started going. One day I just was like, I'm going to angry run. And I ran. And at that time I was like lifting some weights. I was kind of back and forth between it, but I mainly was running. And within I'm not kidding, 2 or 3 months, I went to Victoria's Secret to go replace a bra because I was like, this is not fitting, but I don't know what's wrong, because I didn't see it.
Right.
So the woman's measuring me and she goes, you're a 34 C. It could be a B, but you're almost a C. Now I was a 36 double D.
Oh wow.
So now, right? Wow. It was all of a sudden I'm a 34 C, and I went, I'm sorry, what? So thank God my mother did not let me get that breast reduction when I was 16. Moms, they always know sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I had lost all this weight, and some of it was healthy, some of it was unhealthy. I was going through a really tough breakup at the time, but I literally could look in the mirror and I did not see it. I didn't see it at all. I was clueless. And it's still hard for me to see it sometimes. Yeah. Because I have this thought that I look the same. Right. And then it goes right back to my eating disorder where I have this fear that God forbid I gain 5 pounds, I'll go right back to looking like that. Right. And it's bonkers how much of a fear it is. It's one of my biggest fears that I work with. Yeah. And I could be in the best shape and I still am just like, I don't really see it. I'm getting, again, now I'm getting better and I definitely can see it because I'm just like, I saw a video of me the other day.
Yeah, I was going to say, we've done things together like photo shoot or videos and you're like, I don't know. And I'm like, dude. Yeah. You look great.
Yeah. It's becoming more evident to me now. Yeah. Especially my glute gains are amazing. I'm just like, whoa, look at your booty you made. You built that thing. Yeah. And so I work with my clients a lot on that too, because I have a lot of clients who don't see it. They struggle with the same thing where they're like, I think I look this way. And then we'll do the body scan and they'll be like, wait, hold on. Right. And I'm like, yeah. Yeah. It's so weird.
It's a really hard thing to see sometimes. And, for me, I grew up really skinny. I was saying it earlier to someone, I had a negative chest. I was so skinny. There was nothing, just bone plate.
Oh my God.
And I always just grew up that way. And so when I got fit, even now, literally in the best shape I've been in a long time right now. And when I look at pictures, I see a skinny person. I don't understand how people are like, hey, you look really good. I'm like, there's no way. I'm so small, bro.
You're
I'm
so
skinny,
funny.
But visually, that is what I see in the mirror. It's like a funhouse mirror or an illusion of some kind. That's exactly what it is. We're like, no, we're looking in the same mirror, right? Look in that mirror right there. I'm skinny. No. It's a really bizarre thing. And I'm also not good at hearing compliments. Yeah. From people who bro, you look great. It's
I look okay. I look okay.
Are you making fun of me? I don't know. I'm no, stop. Yeah. It's really challenging. And I'm trying to look for tools to get better at dealing with body dysmorphia. Because it's just so hard. Something that my therapist recommended for me was side-by-sides. Like, hey, you should do side-by-sides, like just for you. Yeah, on your phone. You don't need to post them. It's not for Instagram, but like do a side-by-side. And I have a client who does that all the time. She will do side-by-sides every like couple of weeks. And at first I was like, I don't know, like if that's the healthiest thing to do. You're really hyper-focusing on your body. Yeah. And then I started doing it and I was like, man, this is actually kind of helping me. Because again, she wasn't posting them either. It was just for her. Yeah, or she would send it to me as her trainer. Like, hey, look at the difference in like my glute game, or this is my stomach coming in. Like, great. I love that you're tracking that just for you.
Yep.
And so I've been doing it too. And that side-by-side thing has been helping a lot. And again, just for me.
Yep.
Not to show off anybody, but it's a tool that I never would have thought of either, because in my head, it's like, oh, that's like an Instagram thing. Like, I'm not trying to post a transformation Tuesday or whatever, but it's a cool thing to be able to see that change.
Yeah.
Do you do anything that like helps you with any of the body dysmorphia stuff?
It's so interesting because photos are still something that's I'm mostly over it, especially now that I'm shooting content and stuff like that. Like I'm constantly having to just not nitpick because I want to so bad.
Right.
I want to so bad.
Right.
Like we'll shoot a video and I'll see one thing and I'll just be like, maybe I can shoot it and like maybe I can like suck in my stomach more, which isn't. Risk goes, what stomach?
Right.
And she's right. There's nothing there, but I see it.
See it.
So I have I'm learning to deal with it. It's not easy.
I mean, even what you're doing is a little bit of exposure therapy in a way, right? Like you're filming content and you're posting it and it's out there and it's great. It's coming out awesome. Like what you guys are posting has been really cool. And I'm glad you're doing it. Because again, we've done things where like I can feel that kind of hesitation from you where I'm like, man.
Yeah.
I wish I looked as good as you do. Like you look great. But it's also not on me.
Exactly.
For you to, like, it's how you feel and look in a picture or in a video. You know, that matters. So that's a good segue into the last thing we're going to talk about, which is what you're doing with Riz. So let's talk about this cool project you guys are working on. What is it? Where can they find it?
Well, we do a podcast called Brews, Books, and Barbells. It is Instagram, YouTube, all the Apple, Spotify. iHeart. Yeah, we're on all the platforms. And basically, a couple years ago, I got super into fantasy novels, and I love them mainly for like the badass female main character that are written. Oh my God, they are so cool. And I loved it. And I met Riz randomly at LA Fitness one day. I had asked her to spot me because I needed a spot. There was no other girl around, and I saw that. Oh my God, she is such a badass. And I saw her over there, and I was like, maybe that girl can like help me and like we'll be best friends. And that's exactly what happened. I went over and I was like, please. And from that day forward, we became like gym buds. And one day she goes, I'm reading this really cool book. And I was like, what is it? And she told me it was A Court of Thorns and Roses, which is the book that kind of got me back into reading again. And I went, oh my God. And I literally was just like, tell me everything. I want to know every chapter you read. I want to go on this journey with you. Like, tell me. And so one day she voice notes me and she's like, I have this idea. And her boyfriend was like talking to her about it. And she was like, we should do this like podcast thing where we talk about the fantasy novels and we call it like Brews and Books. And I was like, but that's so overdone right now. Everyone's doing these podcasts about fantasy novels, which is wonderful. I love it.
Totally.
But I said, what if we did that, but added in fitness and incorporated it where we can help people either learn more about fitness or give them workouts to do that pertain to like what the female main character is doing, things to like really, I don't know, boost motivation because these books are so motivating. And we call it, and I just made a joke. I was like, what if it's like Brews, Books, and Barbells? And she goes, I love it.
I love it too.
Right? It's
good.
Genius idea.
Yeah, it is good.
And we just came up with it. So
that's cool, man. That's so creative.
Right?
Yeah.
I never knew that would happen. Yeah. It kind of
that's like the perfect thing for you. Like there's so many different things you love in that project, and that's usually the best projects, right? The things that are closest to you. Because we talk about reading and writing.
Yeah.
That's another thing that we're always kind of chat about. And I love that workout aspect so much. I think it's so interesting because I haven't heard of anything like that. When you told me about it, I was like blown away that you came up with something so cool.
And it's just so fun because both of us are personal trainers.
Yeah.
But we both have such different backgrounds that it works.
Yeah, totally.
Because she's very weight specific.
Yeah.
She's bodybuilding. She's like, that's her route. And I'm weight specific, but I'm a runner.
Right.
Like my passion is running. So to have those two dynamics.
That's a cool combination though.
Yeah.
And I think it speaks to such a broad audience too, which is good. I'm really excited you guys are doing now. You're recording a lot of the content here, which is really fun for me. I'm really happy that you're doing it here. I think we're good. Let's wrap.
Yeah.
That was great. Thank you so much
oh my God, you're
for
so
coming
welcome.
on, Haley. And what's the handles that you want them to follow?
Oh, my personal handle is Haley_Kahn. And then the podcast is Brews Books and No, it's Brews Books Barbells.
There we go.
That's it.
Got it.
You think I'd know? I don't.
We're all learning. All right, guys. Josh with Conquer All Things. Follow us on all platforms. Follow Haley. Check us out for the next podcast. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.